This massive stack of papers is the new March 2026 residential purchase agreement in New Mexico. In this week's podcast, we go through it, not in detail, because that would take 2 or 3 hours, but we go through and cover the high notes, right, Tracy?
Important step. You need to stay tuned.
Yeah.
Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk, episode 574 here in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's spring, and it feels like spring. It's still March, but man, it was like, 90 degrees the other day?
It is spring technically, but we were 33 degrees above normal the other day.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of April Fools, right? April Fool's Day is coming. Here's your heads up. Don't fall for anything too crazy. But we have like 2 stories today that are very April Fool's like. Besides weather being April Fool's like,
Yeah.
we have huge changes in the real estate world right now for 2026.
Yeah.
Things that our clients, buyers, sellers all need to know about.
Yeah, this will be an episode that we hopefully can be reshared when you're looking at buying or selling a home, talking about what is in the actual real estate purchase agreement that we all use here in New Mexico.
Right. It has been completely redone, Tego. Not just like updated, but completely redone.
Completely redone. And before we get into that, I just want to say we're the Venturi Realty Group. It's Tracy and Tego Venturi with the Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker. And if you want to reach our team and have any questions about real estate or need help with real estate, we're at 505-448-8888. We have our office here on Alameda in the North Valley of Albuquerque. All right, let's jump into it.
So, Tego.
Look at this.
Why?
Look at this, Tracy.
Yeah.
I printed it out and you said, why did you waste all that paper? I said, that's just the purchase agreement.
And there's more attachments that go with it.
Oh, right. This is just the core. There's
27 pages right here.
7 pages is what your standard residential purchase agreement is in New Mexico. Now, just to clarify, this is the purchase agreement that is produced by the New Mexico Association of Realtors that just about all the realtors in the state use, and even people that are not necessarily a realtor but a licensed real estate broker may use this as well. So we're going to see it on most residential deals, including land.
Right. So different form, but same. Land has its own purchase agreement.
That's right. You're right. Exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
It's also been changed and
Gosh,
updated.
I should know this. I've been teaching this for 3 days now. But yeah.
You're the state's new expert. So what you just said was important. It's a statewide form by the state and lots of changes in it. So Tego, couple really big things. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think the big one that we have to go into, and both buyers and sellers are going to need to understand this, is this concept called independent consideration. And what that is, if you've done real estate deals maybe in other markets, you might have done something called option money, where you put up some money for you to do your due diligence on the property. And if you terminate, you don't get it back in many cases.
So really it's where the buyer offers something of consideration monetarily to the seller to take the house off the market for them, to give them time to do their due diligence and make sure they're comfortable with moving forward. And if they're not comfortable, they don't get that money back.
Correct. It's a fee that the buyer is paying to the seller directly, and it's non-refundable if the deal doesn't close. Now, if it goes to closing, you've got a couple options.
So the purchase contract, the new one that we're talking about, says if you do go to closing, you may or may not have that money credited towards your closing costs. So that's part of the offer. So you'll know at time of offer whether that money is being used at closing towards your closing costs.
Yeah, and we jumped right into this part of it because it really is the biggest piece that people need to understand. So we want to get to it right up front. But there's a whole lot of other details in here. Definitely some things that buyers need to understand that could really jeopardize and put their earnest money at risk if they make a really, it could be just a minor slip up. And so we'll get to that later. I just wanted to make sure we start on this IC thing. Now, let me ask this. Okay, IC, independent consideration, AKA option money. had an analogy where it's like, okay, you go to the nightclub, right?
Oh,
you
you
and I,
know how we go to the
you
nightclub.
and I are big clubbers here. You go to the nightclub and you pay a cover charge to go in,
Right.
$10, $20, whatever it is, right? I don't know
Yeah,
how
I
much.
have no
It's
idea.
probably $100 these days
In
for all I
Vegas,
know.
in Vegas,
it probably
maybe.
is, yeah.
Or 50.
Or more, but you pay the cover charge, right? And that gives you access to check out the club, right? And see
It
if-
lets you in to see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it lets you to see it. And let's say you go in there and you're like, you look around, you check it out, and you're like, you know what? I don't really like this club. Now, is that bouncer going to give you your money back when you leave? No.
The bouncer.
The
How
bouncer.
funny.
the
These are
bouncer.
like
The door-
1980s
the
here.
doorman. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, what is it called,
Security
Sam? Come
now,
on,
I
help
don't
me out
know.
here. I don't know.
Bouncer's pretty good.
Bouncer? Okay, doorman. So basically, I mean, that's kind of what this is. The buyer is saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to pay you this money so I can check out your property. And if I decide I don't like it and I don't want to move forward, you get to keep that money. That's really what it is. Now,
Right.
the question comes up, how much is it?
Well, I was just going to say
I know.
that is whatever the buyer wants to offer, right?
And whatever the seller's
and whatever
willing.
the seller's willing to accept. So we've already had this come up. I wrote a buyer offer the other day. Lisa Pino on our team also wrote an offer over this past weekend using the new form, all brand new learning. And thank you so much for all the many hours you've put into learning this and teaching us all, because there's a lot to know. But, it could be $1. It could be $10,000, non-refundable, gifted directly.
It has to be greater than 0. That's the only
Could be a penny.
requirement. Well,
I mean, it could. It has to be greater than 0.
it has to be greater
and
than
it's
0.
required
And it's required.
to have a valid contract.
Yes, that's a really, really key point, is that it is required. This is not optional. This must be paid to have a valid contract.
So we're kind of going in depth here
I know,
on
I
this.
know.
So the two contracts that I'm referencing right now, one was $100 being offered direct to the seller to take the house off the market, accept that offer, give the client the opportunity to do their due diligence, their inspections, whatever, look at everything, make sure they were good. And the other was $1,000. And part of it is how competitive is that property, right? So we know that both of the houses had the potential of multiple offers. The one that I did had the threat of multiple offers, but the other one that Lisa did actually already had an offer. So it was the buyer said, I want this house. I want to offer the seller more money to take the house off the market for me to have a more competitive offer. So it's a whole new deal.
Yeah, and that's something that sellers need to take from this is another, let's call it negotiation lever that you can pull as a seller to help strengthen the offer. You don't really want to take the home off the market, but hey, if they give you, a good offer, or you got multiple offers, you've got some strategies here where you can really get the buyer to have more skin in the game, is really what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something else here, because this is going to confuse a lot of people, which is earnest money versus independent consideration. They're two different things.
Right.
They're not the same thing.
So earnest money does not go to the seller.
Correct.
Right? Earnest money goes to the title company, and at closing, it is credited towards the buyer's closing costs, right? Now,
Or price.
or towards the price,
yeah.
towards whatever they have
Whatever
to
they
bring to
want. Yeah,
closing.
it's credited toward the
And
buyer.
if
Yeah.
they've overpaid on earnest money, they get a refund.
Right,
If they
right.
don't have enough closing costs or down payment. But the difference is throughout the whole purchase contract, it says, if there's earnest money, if this happens or that happens, and the buyer decides not to move forward with the purchase, that the buyer gets the earnest money back.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to point out is in our purchase agreements, there are a lot of opportunities for a buyer to basically say, I've done my due diligence, inspections, documents,
Title work.
title work,
HOA.
survey, goes on and on and on, right? There's a whole laundry list of things that buyers have the opportunity to check into, look at, including the condition of the property, of course, say that again. And if they're not satisfied or they can't come to terms with the seller on, let's say, some repairs, the buyer has the opportunity to back out of that deal, right?
And earnest money.
And earnest money gets returned if everybody agrees that everybody did everything right per the agreement, right? So earnest money is more of a good faith. I'm purposely not calling it earnest deposit because that is not what it is. It is a earnest money held in escrow. It's good faith from the buyer showing the seller that, hey, I'm serious about this. Independent consideration, again, it's a fee that the buyer is paying directly to the seller that never gets refunded to the buyer.
So one really important thing that our listeners really need to understand is there is a very strict deadline for independent consideration being received by the seller.
Yes, there is a deadline. Okay, we draft up this 24-page document, 27 pages with the cover pages. We draft it up, go back and forth, buyer, seller, whatever it is, doing, we try to, obviously, Tracy, you're a master of this, is, writing up good, clean offers that both buyers and sellers can agree on and everybody feels like they've won. Okay, so everybody's agreed, it's delivered to the other party. Now you're under contract, okay? However, you must ratify that contract by paying independent consideration to the seller.
And the deadline is
3 days.
3 days. So it's Friday night, Saturday morning, we get a purchase under contract. We have a signed, ratified contract, and now you have 3 days to get that independent consideration to the seller and have a receipt that they've received it.
And it's 3 calendar days. If it falls on a holiday, it rolls over to the next business day. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting in the weeds here, but
Right.
this matters a lot.
What happens if it's Sunday? Because
It
I
rolls
had
to,
one that
rolls to
went.
Monday.
I had one that went pending last Saturday.
Yep.
So was the deadline Tuesday or Wednesday?
It went pending
It went
Saturday.
pending Saturday.
So it'd be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay, so Sunday counted. Sunday,
Yeah,
Monday, Tuesday.
Absolutely.
So it's quick. And what happens if that independent consideration?
I know.
I was like,
Let's just call it IC. It's so much easier. IC.
what if that IC? Now I'm thinking about ICEE.
Yeah.
What if that IC is not
I'm going to
received?
run to the corner store and get you
me an
a
IC.
Slurpee. Yeah,
Yeah.
or an IC. Yeah.
I know we have a new convenience gas station nearby. What happens if it's not received in 3 days and I don't have that receipt?
That contract that everybody agreed to is no longer a contract. It immediately and automatically terminates.
So
I'm not joking about this. This is like immediately and automatically it terminates. Let me look right at it. See, I can't, Sam, I'm messing you up, man. I'm going from one camera to the other. Sorry. Immediately and automatically terminates if independent consideration is not turned in within the due date.
So-
that is such a big deal, and it's going to catch people off guard.
So, Tego, this is all new. There's, thousands of realtors across New Mexico. This new form is just being rolled out on different platforms. Not even every realtor has access in their typical platform to get this form. Obviously, it's available to all realtors in the state platform. But a lot of people don't even know, haven't even had a chance to digest this yet. I know you've done a great job training. You spent 2 hours yesterday on a Zoom with the whole state of New Mexico with Real Broker teaching us about this. But that 3 days comes and goes. You start over. You don't have a house under contract anymore.
Yeah.
And
the buyer has the obligation to get that money turned in. The seller has an obligation to prove and give a receipt that money's been turned in.
And there's a form for that.
Yeah. And let's not get in the weeds on that. I want to go to the other big thing in here that I teased a little bit earlier that could really catch a buyer off guard if they're just not thinking about it. So let's say you're a buyer or you're the buyer's broker, and you've got your home inspection report, and you've got this 30-page, 35, 40-page inspection report from the home inspector, right?
Right.
They've gone through, they've checked everything, and they found a little thing here, a little thing there, and there's a long list of stuff in there. Right now, in the new purchase agreement, if you send that entire report to the seller without the seller giving you written requests to have that report,
The whole report.
if you were to send that to them as a buyer or the buyer's broker without a written request from the seller, you now put your earnest money at risk. So what that means is you're like going, you know what, I really, there's a whole bunch of stuff wrong with this house. I want to get a credit for $10,000. I'm going to just send them the whole report. Well, if the deal terminates, the deal falls through, even under the rights that the buyer has to terminate the deal in the purchase agreement, that earnest money becomes non-refundable.
So
Go ahead.
what I'm hearing is we have job security even more now.
Well,
You think about all these little innuendos in the purchase agreement that we do this regularly, whereas a buyer and seller don't do this regularly.
yeah, it was funny. There was that viral, I think it was on Instagram or TikTok, this woman talking about, making fun of what we do. And it's like, all we're doing is talking back and forth about the purchase price. Like, that's such like a small part of what we do.
Right.
It's like this in everything we have to keep track of is the biggest part of the deal in keeping buyers and sellers out of trouble, right? There are so many things in here. So anyway,
For sure.
that's one of the big traps that a buyer needs to be aware of. Don't send the entire inspection report to the seller unless it's been given written requests from the seller.
Yeah.
So again, that's another one of those.
So-
That's a big danger zone. Don't send the full inspection report to the seller without them giving you a written request for it.
Perfect. Okay, one other trap that's in there.
Yep.
So the old purchase agreement said that the buyer has already inspected the neighborhood and they're already comfortable with what they know about the surroundings. So if it's in the flight path, they've already looked into that. If it flight path of a plane, right?
Right. Well, they've looked at. Well, let's be.
They've looked at crime stats.
Yeah.
So now it says that it's not pre-approved that way. Now the purchase agreement says they have time to investigate the neighborhood and make sure they're comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's one more thing that's now part of the due diligence that the buyer gets, which is investigate the neighborhood, the surroundings, whatever they want. That's another thing that a buyer can object to. Like you said, in the old purchase agreement, when they signed that purchase agreement, they basically said, well, I've already done my research of the neighborhood. Well, that's gone now. Now the buyer does get that option, and sellers need to understand that as well.
One of the things I tell my buyers, especially people who aren't from the Albuquerque area, is I say, go walk the neighborhood at different times of day. Go to the grocery store that you would go to if you buy this house. Go to the neighborhood park. Just, walk around in the morning, walk around after work. Make sure you feel comfortable that this is where you want to call home. Yeah. Because it's very different. If I go show a house at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, the neighborhood's usually pretty quiet, right? If you go at 5:36, people are getting home, go for a walk, make sure you feel good about it. Investigate it however you need to. There's a lot of information online, obviously. Other thing changed, Tego?
Well, I want to talk about a couple structural things. Okay, I'm going to hold this up for the camera. Well, you're not going to be able to see it. So this is the first page of the purchase agreement now.
Okay.
One thing that's nice on this is everything that's kind of like the quick summary of this agreement: the purchase price, the down payment, earnest money, independent consideration, closing date, signing date. All of those type of things are right on the first page, so you can get it, in a snapshot. But if you're a buyer and a seller, you gotta dig into it because there's so many more details. Just give you an example. This page, it's one page. All it deals with is what is real property, what's included with the property, and then a whole grid of what is personal property that stays or doesn't stay with the property.
Like fridge, microwave that might not be built in, washer, dryer,
rain barrels.
Yeah, we had that one.
That one's come up. It's stuff like that where you think, oh, well, that just stays with the home. The other one is electric car chargers. It's attached, it's hardwired, but it's still considered personal property, which kind of throws our old rule that we used to have, which is you turn the house upside down and shake it. Anything that falls out is personal property. Well, that's kind of out the door. So you really, again, if you're a buyer seller, make sure you're very clear on what stays and what goes.
Another thing that I've seen that has tripped us up over the years is bookcases and big pieces of furniture that people attach to a wall to make sure they don't fall over on kids.
Yeah.
It's really personal property with some safety measures in place. And so a lot of times when we're showing houses and we see a wall of bookshelves, the client will go and say, are these attached to the wall or not? And, they wouldn't fall out if we shook the house upside down. And that's intentional for safety. It's not that they really should stay with the house.
Yeah, and I think that the takeaway this is on property and what's included and what's not included. When in doubt, make sure it's in the agreement so everybody's clear on what's what. There's no surprises.
Absolutely. One other big change, something that used to just happen automatically at closing, where the title company would verify whether the seller was a foreign person or foreign entity or not. Now that deadline has moved up.
Yeah, so okay, gosh, this is such a difficult concept to explain. This is why we have job security as realtors, right? Because stuff like this is this FIRPTA requirement. So if the property is subject to FIRPTA reporting requirements,
Which is foreign interest, something or other.
doesn't matter. But basically the seller has to prove that they are not a foreign person. And so there's this documentation that they're going to have to provide. In most cases here in Albuquerque, it's you give it to the title company and then they verify the information. But basically, you have to prove that you are not a foreign person selling the property.
And it's important because if you are a foreign person, the title company is required to hold back some of your funds when they disperse how much you're getting out of the sale, because they want to make sure that your taxes get paid, because that's what it's all about. And apparently it can come back on the buyer.
I hope we haven't lost you yet, because the thing is there's so many details in this thing that we have to be aware of and we have to track and understand. One thing I wanted to show you, one page here. This page shows a grid of all the different addendums and such that could be part of this purchase agreement. So every time you...
In addition to the 27 pages.
In addition to the 27 pages, here's the list. It's in a homeowners association or a condo association. It's subject to the lead-based paint disclosure, meaning it was built before 1978. It's a manufactured home. It has a well in the house. It has a septic system for the property. There's a buyer sale contingency, meaning the buyer must sell their home before they can buy this home. There's a credit, there's a seller credit, and it goes on, right? I think you get the point. It's tenant occupied, right? That's a whole nother one. That opens up a whole nother can of worms if there's going to be a tenant, especially on we've done some fourplexes and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of disclosures and documentation that has to be done between the old owner and the new owner about the tenants.
Deposits and rents and how you credit things. A lot of complexities in doing those multifamily.
And then the other thing is, one of the things that's changed, Tracy, is a way we think about this concept of inspections of the property. We've always talked about, we have to do the inspections, right? In New Mexico, we have a standard, what we call full home inspection. There's requirements, there's licensing required for that full home inspector. But that's not everything, but that's a pretty comprehensive inspection of the property. But there could be a bunch of additional inspections as well. But instead of just examination of the structure in the property itself and anything that goes with that, the buyer has the opportunity to examine any documents, any information. Let's say there's a propane tank and there's a lease agreement on that. That's something the buyer has the opportunity to review and look at, right? I hope Leah's not listening. Solar, right? Yeah, solar. There you go, right? So
it could be owned, or it could be owned, or it could be leased, and it might need to be assumed at the payment, or it could be paid off at closing.
Yeah. So the point is, there's a whole laundry list of things that the buyer has the opportunity to inspect, and it's not just the property. It could be paperwork and documentation as well. And again, back to what you said earlier, the opportunity to research, investigate the neighborhood and surroundings as well.
So are those the biggies, or is there anything we're missing?
I think those are the big ones, Trace, the biggies. Yeah, I think that covers it. There's so much in it, and take the time to understand what you're agreeing to, both on the buy side and the sell side. I know when we're selling our properties, you do the listing agreement between your listing broker and yourself to get the home, on the market. But then you get excited, you get this purchase agreement and said, okay, here's the price, here's the closing date, here it is. You got to understand what you've just agreed to and what your obligations are and what the buyer's rights are, more importantly, as a seller, right?
Yeah.
Because the buyer has a lot of rights in this purchase contract.
They do. So I'm going to give the quick recap here.
Okay.
Okay. Things the buyer needs to know. You must put skin in the game up front, right? With independent consideration. You can vet the neighborhood after you're under contract. You have that deadline. And you must keep your inspection report to yourself.
There you go.
Unless it's under certain conditions, right? Where
You said one word I want to highlight, deadline. The dates are so critical in this. If you miss a deadline, you could be giving up your rights to object, for example, if you're the buyer. If you miss the objection deadline for any of the inspections or any of the other stuff that may have an objection deadline, it doesn't terminate the deal. You've now just given up the right to make that objection. You have to make those dates. They're very critical. Again, that's one of the things that we do as your broker to track, but those deadlines matter a lot.
Okay, Tego, key things sellers need to know. The quick and dirty takeaway here, right?
I know what you're trying to tell me here. Keep it short.
Sellers get paid for your time to have the house off the market while somebody's doing their due diligence. So that's money you just get to keep. And maybe it's a credit towards the buyer at closing.
And something sellers should know is that independent consideration, that fee that the buyer's paying you, it's negotiable.
Right. Until it's agreed to.
Right.
Okay. Then the other one is that the buyer has the opportunity to terminate the purchase based on a lot of things in our New Mexico purchase agreement.
Yeah, there is. I mean,
they can walk away.
You know, we've said it a bunch of times here, is there's a bunch of due diligence that the buyer gets to do, and they have the opportunity to do those things and either terminate or request cures, as we say.
So tell me, there's one other thing, Tego, called TILA. It's a Truth in Lending Act.
Yeah, Truth in Lending. This has been out there a while, but something new is that the seller can now request the buyer prove that they've done their loan application. That's the short version of it. But
and there's a deadline for that to happen.
Correct. It's not automatic. The seller can request, and it's just a way for a seller to say, hey, I just want to make sure you applied for your loan and it's moving forward.
And that's something we as realtors help facilitate.
Oh, of course.
For sure.
Yeah.
So some of the rights and obligations on both sides, Tego, as our final wrap here. Buyer's rights, exclusive right and option to purchase the property while they conduct investigations.
Yeah, and that's what the contractually, that's what the independent consideration is doing. It's basically you as the buyer are buying the right by paying that consideration to the seller to buy the exclusive right to purchase this property.
Yeah. And buyer must deliver independent consideration with strict deadlines.
Yep.
We talked about that.
Yep.
Seller rights, the right to keep the independent consideration if the buyer walks away unless the seller breaches the contract.
Yeah, that's the only time the independent consideration could go back to the buyer is if the seller breaches the agreement.
Right, which doesn't happen very often, but
Very
we
rare.
have. I remember a few years ago we were under contract and the seller changed their mind and they had a big life change and they said, I am not going to sell my house.
Well, think back to the crazy days of 21, 22, and sellers were like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then they get under contract and they go try to find the home to buy and they can't find anything to buy.
Yeah.
That happened a few times. Anyway, all right, we're getting off track. All right, FAQs. Sam, you've been sitting here listening. You're not a realtor, but you work with us all day, every day as our marketing expert. What questions do you think are going to come up for people buying and selling?
You guys have done a pretty good job answering a lot of the questions.
Did you
that I
hear that?
already
We did a
had.
good job.
But there's a few things that I know that's going to come up, which is, first of all, why all of these changes? You guys have gotten into a lot of what has changed, but can you explain a little bit why it's changed and why this is beneficial for both buyers and sellers?
Want me to take that?
I think so because, it's very contractual.
Yeah, it's for legal reasons. No, but
Especially
really,
the independent consideration.
Yeah, the thing is, our purchase agreements were pretty loosey-goosey in the sense that the buyer really had so many outs in this agreement and they really didn't have any consideration into the deal, right? You have to have consideration to form a contract. And now by at least paying some money, whatever it is, can't be less than zero, it can't be zero or less. Now at least the buyer has contractually said, okay, I'm going to pay you this as consideration. That's the short version of it.
That's great. And so you've also talked a little bit about how the IC money, it doesn't come back. It goes straight to the seller. It's not like earnest money. But I'm also kind of reading here in some of your notes that we didn't really talk about. Is there the ability to negotiate that back? Say I have to pay a $10,000 IC credit. Can I negotiate that back into the purchase price or into the closing costs, anything like that?
Yeah, correct. So you have the option as a buyer, again, that whatever that dollar amount is, I can't imagine it would ever be 10,000, but it could be.
We've had $10,000 before.
Well, back in 21, 22, we saw some very large non-refundable deposits because it was so competitive. Buyers were doing stuff like that. But yeah, in the actual purchase agreement, you have the option as a buyer to say, okay, this money goes to the seller, and when I close, it doesn't become a credit to my cost or my price, or I want it to be a credit toward my costs and my price at closing. Now, again, if you don't close, it always goes to the seller, even if you exercise one of your conditions to terminate in the purchase agreement as the buyer.
Great. And so the one thing I just really wanted to kind of clarify was you said that earnest money and independent consideration are two separate things. And so can you just kind of clarify about how you get one back and how you pretty much you're paying out on the IC?
Yeah, again, the earnest money, again, it's earnest money. It's just showing good faith. It sits at the title company or escrow company during the due diligence period. And at closing, that would get credited to your, again, closing costs or price or whatever for the buyer, right, as a buyer. And it gets refunded if the deal terminates and the buyer exercises one of their rights to terminate. Now, that still has to be agreed on before it gets distributed, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it is normally refunded where independent consideration is normally never refunded for the buyer.
And the last thing I kind of wanted some clarification on was how does this change HOA documents? Is it pretty much the same, or are there changes now where who's under the obligation to report those things?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. We really didn't go into it in our summary, but there are some changes in the purchase agreement on homeowners association documentation. There's a law in New Mexico that sellers must provide certain information to a potential buyer about the homeowners association. It has to, it's the bylaws and it's all the rules and all that stuff, but it's also finances of the HOA too, right, Tracy?
Right. Making sure they're solvent. They have the right amount of reserves for whatever they manage.
Yeah, so under New Mexico statute, it's actually the obligation of the seller to collect that. Now, here in the Albuquerque area, pretty much all of our title companies take care of that for the seller, correct?
Yeah.
They reach out to the HOA management company, they collect that information, and then it gets passed on to the buyer. So in the purchase agreement now, there's the option where you say, okay, the seller's going to provide it, or we're going to ask for it from the title company, and then the buyer has their 7 days due diligence period to review that, 7 days or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
on the HOA. Yeah, good questions. I mean, there's so much in here, and if you get one of these in front of you, the new purchase agreement, it's going to be dated March 2026 at the bottom. It's the New Mexico Form 2104. Again, this is used for pretty much all of the residential purchases here in the New Mexico area. And
Okay.
it's brand new. And what's going to happen, what's going to be interesting here over the next few months, Tracy, is we're going to have some people using the old version because they don't have it in their forms platform yet, and some people using the revised version. So there'll be a little bit of overlap.
Some will use an old one because they've saved their own template.
Yeah.
Even though they need to be using the new one. So
Yeah.
awesome.
If you've got any questions about buying or selling in Albuquerque, we are here to help.
Yeah, for sure.
Phone number?
505-448-8888. Very easy to remember. Or you can find us online. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're in Google.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
We're everywhere. But our website is welcomehomeabq.com. Great resources there. Tego's done a great job making it very easy to use. You don't have to register to use it, where most of those real estate websites, they start looking at a house and then they have a pop-up that says, tell us who you are. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, and we've got every home that is listed in the multiple listing service here in Albuquerque, on there.
Including coming soon.
Including coming soon properties, which is something I pushed through last year. But
Good job.
yeah. That's meaning it's a home that's going to be, so we got off track here. It's going to be a home that's going to be coming on the market. It's not available to see yet, but now you know about it. And so you can prepare to take a look at it when it's ready to be seen.
We've had that where I'm out showing houses and they think, well, I really need to pick one. And then we see a coming soon and they go, no, that's the one I really want.
Yeah.
So we would have already been under contract if that house hadn't been in coming soon and we knew to wait for it. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing you did.
Yep.
So thanks so much. Until
Thanks,
next
everybody.
time.